Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday live analysis. So as usual, we will be having the live analysis session on every Wednesday and Friday. We'll be analyzing both the New York session on Wednesday as well as the London session on Friday. So for today, as usual, we will be going through the key market setups. At the same time, we will also be going through the previous trade calls that were made. So we'll do a quick review of that. And if you guys have any questions or any charts that you want us to look at, please put under the questions tab and we will analyze them together. So just a quick background of myself, right? Very nice to meet you guys. I'm Li Xing. I'm the FX strategist, and I'm also part of the team recognized by the Technical Analyst Awards as finalist for the best FX research since 2019 to 2022. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. So this is the first setup that we have on Aussie Dollar. So previously on Aussie Dollar, this was the call that was made. So this was done last Friday. So over here on Aussie Dollar, you can see that on a higher time frame, price broke this support turn resistance level over here. So we see that prices are on the higher time frame. Your weekly time frame here, it's showing you bearish flow, right? So prices are forming your lower lows and lower highs, and there's a recent break of the trend line as well. And when you go to the daily time frame, sorry, before that, right, back on our weekly, you can see that this area that we've marked out, this is a support area, and also there's another higher level up here. You can see this level, which price actually it's testing right now, this support area here. So as usual, right, you can see that price came in and respected this area as a support over here before it reacted and failed as a resistance, and right now prices are testing this area again. So this is on the bigger picture. So back then when we were analyzing this chart on Aussie Dollar previously, we were looking at a 4 hours time frame and we were somewhere here in time, right? So this whole move to the left of the chart was what we saw, and what happened on the right, it hasn't played out yet. So back then our call on Aussie Dollar over here, it's this. So on the higher time frame, we saw that price, it's still respecting the descending trend line. On the 4 hours, it's respecting the descending trend line. It also broke and retested this trend line that we have on the daily. So this daily time trend line, which I'll probably mark it in, let's say, pink. You can see over here, this is the daily trend line. Price respected this area twice before it failed and retested as a resistance. And we can see it from this candle here. So when we zoom down to the smaller time frame to make the analysis on the 4 hours, you can see that this was the analysis that was done previously. So what we have is prices still holding below the descending trend line. And then on the 1 hour time frame, we marked out these two areas, right? So this area was in line with the 78.6 Fibonacci extension level, the zigzag pattern that we've identified. So we marked this resistance area out, and the call here made was that if price breaks and close below this blue zone, so back then when we made the call, it was this to the left of this purple line. So nothing here played out yet. So the idea is that if price close below this blue zone, then we could see further downside. But as long as it doesn't, right, we're waiting for a push up to test this blue zone that we have over here. So you can see very nicely price came up, test this blue zone before it pushed down. So in this case, what you saw over here with this reaction, it's basically prices testing this weekly support zone, right? So we have this area which was marked out earlier here in this session in purple. So you can see this area where we saw price react as both support and resistance. So this area, as you can see here. So this was where price came in and it reacted before we saw a pullback. You can see, so price came into this region, the purple region, also the support before it pulled back. Right now, overall bias, it's still bearish. The idea behind this is we can see over here, right, on the 4 hours, on your 1 hour, in terms of your market structure, prices broke below the previous low. So as it pulls back, as long as it holds below this descending trend line, the bias is still bearish. So right now over here, what we have is that you can see prices are approaching this descending trend line. And if again, right, so now that we have, we did a review of the previous call, let me just remove all of this and let's do a fresh analysis. So over here, you can see on the 4 hours, right, same thing, we're holding below the descending trend line. That's one. And also over here, you can see that there's a clear support turn resistance area. If I mark down on zoom down onto the 1 hour, you can see it clearer as well. So this area over here. So we can see here on the 4 hours time frame, price is holding below this level, and there is this support and resistance level. If you zoom down to the 1 hour time frame, you can see this area very clearly as well. So apart from the descending trend line, we have this area, which is this candle here. So you can see this candle on the 1 hour. So prices are right now entering into this region. And along with that, right, same thing. Let me just mark out this area here. So now we want to focus on this portion of the chart. You can see again, right, the first thing we want to do is after we have identified our graphical levels. So this was a previous support and resistance level. And if I put a horizontal line across, you can see here very nicely. It divides the chart very nicely. So this was a previous resistance. You can see price pulls back up into this region. It rejected this area, so it was respected as a resistance. Price pushed up, tested as a support, continue higher, retested again as a support before a stronger push up. And right now it retested, broke this, tested as a resistance, and you can see here. So the idea behind this is that what we realize from here is that this zone price comes in and tested and respected this area multiple times. You can see, and right now we are revisiting this region. So this is what we have on the 1 hour, the 4 hours time frame. You can see that on the 4 hours, you can see a clear descending trend line still being respected as well. And what we have to be slightly more cautious of or to keep in mind is that on the weekly time frame, prices are bouncing off the support level. So let me just highlight this level, right? You can see on the weekly time frame here. So this is just a level to watch out for. And the idea behind this is because you can see price react and respect this region multiple times, right? We're testing support and then broke as resistance, retested, and right now we are seeing this spike on the higher time frames, which is actually a pullback, right, on your 4 hours. So this is what we have, right? So something to keep in mind is that on the higher time frame, it could be potentially sitting on a support zone. But until the smaller time frame tells us otherwise, right, until you see resistance zones or supply zones start failing right now on the smaller time frame, your 4 hours, it's still bearish direction. Okay, so on the 4 hours, right, we see price approaching this resistance area on 1 hour as well. So what we want to keep in mind over here, let me remove this blue zone. There's the weekly support. So right now over here, what we want to do after identifying our graphical level, it's to use our retracement, right, to see if there are any levels that line up with this area that we've identified. So again, a lot of it is on probability, right? So we want to make sure to find as many factors that line up and stack the odds in our favor. So with that in mind, the next thing that we want to do is to use our Fibonacci retracement. So for Fibonacci retracement, to find resistance, we want to identify the move first. And following that, we would then use the highs and lows as starting and ending points. Okay, so on the 1 hour, you can see that if I were to pen out the move, this is how it's going to look like. You see a strong push down, a rejection, right? And then price push down lower. It broke the previous low. And right now we're seeing a pullback into this region. So what we can also keep in mind with this is that this is the last move before we saw the pullback. So now that we've identified this move, we can use our Fibonacci retracement on this move. So how this works is that we can use this, right? So this is the high, which we will be using as our starting point. And this is the low, which we will be using as our ending point. So basically, we want to use a Fibonacci retracement, and we start taking from the high and ending the point at the low. So with that, right, let's take our Fibonacci retracement here, right? So this tool, and you can turn on the magnet mode. So by using this tool, it helps you to basically capture the tops and bottoms nicely. So all I need to do is just hover around the candle, and it'll capture the exact high. And again, right, the exact low. So I'm using the highest and lowest point within that move. And you can see over here, right? So same thing, open up your key levels. So generally with trend lines, the 61.8 and 78.6 retracements can be very powerful, right? So in this example, you can see over here, right, what we have in line with what we've marked out in terms of the black line that we see here. So let me just remove all of this. You can see, right, within this purple zone that we've marked out, and this line that we highlighted here. So let me just remove the purple zone just for a while, right? You can see essentially this line that we've highlighted, essentially it's one that divides the chart very neatly across. And we saw that price respected this level as both the support and resistance. And in line with that, you can see that there is also the 61.8 retracement where prices are holding. So this is the first resistance area. And along with that, right, if you mark out based on specific candles, right, this would be the support resistance zone, right? You can mark it according to the reaction of this level if you want to narrow down the region, or if you prefer to have a larger region to work with, then you can mark it according to this candle. So this demand candle, which push prices higher, right, that we saw earlier on into the resistance zone here. So yeah, so this is the support turn resistance area. And once price reaches into this area, what I'm watching out for over here, this is on a 1 hour time frame. So you can either zoom to the 30 minutes or the 15 minutes time frame. And what you notice over here is that when price enters into this region right now, you can see that it is still forming your higher lows and higher highs, right? So at this region, what we do have over here is that prices are still holding above this ascending trend line. That's one. You can see prices still holding above this ascending trend line. I probably want to put this in a different color, let's say in purple, right? So what we want to wait for when price enters into this region, it's for this ascending trend line to be broken. So ideally something like this, price coming into this region, breaking it, you could potentially see a double top before a break and a reversal from there, right? That's one. Or any other reversal patterns. But what's important with this, once price reaches into this region, is that we want to identify support zones that held previously, which price came in to tested but failed to break and form new higher highs before it fails. So that's the idea, because what that shows us is that there could be a potential change in hands between buyers and sellers, right? So right now, you can see over here, prices are still forming higher lows and higher highs. So right now, pushing into this zone, we are still bullish. So what we want to wait for is for the bearish flow to kick in either on your 30 minutes or your 15 minutes. So that is what I see on Aussie dollar. In terms of the target, a conservative target over here, right, you can see that this is the 30 minutes time frame, and this at this region, you can see here as well. If I were to highlight this move, you can see that this was a resistance turn support level that was previously respected. You can see price come into this region, right? So prices came into this region, it rejected and tested as a resistance before price broke above it and retested as a support before it continued to the upside. So over here, you can see that this area, price came and tested as a resistance, respected this area. And then again, when it failed as a resistance, it came in, retested as a support before pushing higher. So for me, right, once price comes into this region, if we are playing a short after the break of this ascending trend line, the next thing I want to wait for in terms of the target, right, this would be one key area to watch. So in terms of where would we be wrong in terms of the trade is when this descending trend line fails, right? So if I open up a key retracement level, apart from the 61.8 retracement, the next one is the 78.6 retracement. You can see that this is slightly higher. So if you want to be slightly more conservative, you can consider putting the next level, right? The next stop at the graphical level, which is this high over here, right? So this is one area to watch. Or if you want to put it just above the descending trend line, you can put it here as well, just slightly above the next key retracement. So that is what we have, right? So in terms of this area that we have identified, another thing that we can also use in terms of using the Fibonacci retracements and extensions. Now, right now we've identified the retracement. So the next step is to use it as our extensions, right? So when we apply the Fibonacci extension to find resistance, essentially we're looking for two patterns, right? So this zigzag patterns can either look like this or it can look like this. Okay, so generally when we want to find resistance, these are the two patterns that we watch out for. So in this example, you can see that this would coincide more with the first pattern that we see here, right? So with this, you can see that this is the zigzag pattern that we will be using. So essentially what this does after having identified the pattern is that we can use the turning points. So this is the first point, the second point, and third point. So we use these 3 points that we have found to project the extension level and see if any of these levels actually line up with, let's say, your retracement or the support or resistance zone that you've identified. So once we found that, right, you can see that what this shows is that there's more confluence at this specific level. But as always, right, we want to make sure that on the smaller time frame, there is this change in hands between your buyers and sellers before price reverse. So in this case, this zigzag pattern, right, we found this zigzag pattern. So the next thing we want to do is to identify our extension. So we use these 3 points, 1, 2, 3 to project the extension levels. So I'm going to take this pattern, right? You can see here, fit extension, and I'll turn on again the magnet mode, and I'll capture this 3 reversal points, point 1, point 2 here, remove this, and then point 3. Right? And then these are the 3 extension levels that I use. So the more common ones, there's also 1.272, right? So those are the 4. I would say that 1.272 is less common. Usually it will be this 3. So in this example, right, same thing, you open up the key levels, and what you realize from here is that if I were to put this, let's say maybe in green, you can see that the 100% extension lines up very neatly here as well. So this is the resistance area that we've identified. We have also found a graphical level on our 1 hour. You can see here which price respect, right, as both a resistance and support very neatly here. And coupled with that, we also have the 61.8 retracement. We also have the 100% extension here, right? So this is the zigzag pattern that we found in green. You can see here, right? So prices are right now approaching this level. So this is the first area to watch. And along with that, you can see that at this level, there is also your retracement and extension confluence lining up. So that's on Aussie dollar. My view is still bearish. And unless price breaks above this, right? So over here, you can see that in terms of market structure, this high also broke the previous low. So as long as this high, it's not broken over here, right? Overall bearish is still bias. Overall bias is still bearish. I mixed up the words. Yeah, so this is the high, right? So as long as price holds within this high, the bias is still bearish, right? But we do have to be slightly more careful at the graphical levels as well, because you can see that on the weekly time frame, this is actually sitting on a support level, right? So we are seeing price pushed up again, right? If we go back to the weekly, you can see that this area. So again, right, if you want to put it in a specific level or area, you can see here, essentially this area where price respected as both a support and resistance. And right now we're seeing on the smaller time frame, your 4 hours, a pullback here. So this is what we have, right? So once this breaks, so once this high goes over here, this is the 4 hours high. Once this high goes, right, so if price breaks above it and pull back, what this shows us is that there is this weekly support that prices are respecting, and at the same time it also took out the high, so we can again be seeing a change in hands. So once this happens, right, but in this case I will wait for a break above this high for a change in direction to bullish, right now what we are seeing in the market, what it presents here, for me, it's still bearish. So of course, right, when price comes into this region, what we want to wait for, it's either a break of this ascending trend line or failure of support on the smaller time frame once price enters this resistance region. So this is what we have on Aussie dollar. Okay, and the next one I want to show you guys is on gold. So gold, we actually did an analysis on Friday as well, right? So this is what we have. Let's see gold, right? So again, right, this marker over here, the one in purple, what this shows us is basically the analysis that was done, right? So this was what happened following the analysis. So on Friday, right, when we saw gold, prices were ranging at this area, right? So on the higher time frame on gold, you can see as well, on the monthly picture, price broke this ascending trend line. You see very neatly over here. Oops, sorry for that. So price broke this ascending trend line. We see a clear break below this level. So if I were to hide the drawing, you can see there's this ascending trend line which price broke, right? And right now, in terms of the weekly time frame, we have also identified another support zone, and this support zone is one that again divides the chart very nicely across. You can see that price comes in and tests it as a resistance, and then again as a support over here multiple times. And right now we are still seeing some more downside before it reaches this level here. So this is what we have on the higher time frame. And when you zoom down to the daily time frame over here, you can see that price again broke it, and this is a clear support and resistance area. So we could see a pullback to this area, but when you zoom down to the smaller time frame, right, so this is still a pretty deep pullback here. So on Friday, when we analyzed this on 4 hours, this is what we were seeing. We saw price traded sideways. I think probably more obvious on the 1 hour time frame. So this is what we have. You can see here, right? So our analysis on gold, it's still overall it's still bearish because of this downside that we could be seeing, right? Given that this is a weekly support area. So what we see over here, right, on Friday is that we saw that prices were still holding below this descending trend line, and we were waiting for a clear break and close below the support area. right? So where it was over here, you can see that prices were trading sideways. It's pretty much holding and moving sideways, and you see clear support resistance levels form. So in this range, we're waiting for a clear break and close below, which we are seeing right now. So if I were to adjust this analysis, you can see that prices are still holding below this descending trend line. And coupled with that, what we have as well is that we have this support and resistance area. You can see here this clear support level where price came in and respected it, right? Pushed higher, but still failed to close above the previous high, respecting this descending trend line. And right now we're seeing a clear close, a break and close below this area. So this is the descending trend line. And you can see that prices are right now pulling back to this resistance area. So on top of that, right, what we can also do here. So right now, for me, the bias is still bearish as long as price holds below this, but we also have to be more cautious because later on, right, we actually have the US CPI data being released. And this is important because if CPI or inflation continues to go higher, it could push the dollar higher, right? And gold is a dollar denominated asset. So if the dollar rallies higher on the prospect of higher interest rates, right, when there's stronger inflation data, then what markets could be expecting is for the Fed to be more hawkish, to basically tighten their monetary policy, raise interest rates more aggressively to stem inflation, right? So once that happens, then what we could see if the dollar rallies is that gold itself, right, gold prices would drop because if dollar rallies, right, then you can see over here basically the denominator strengthen, then gold could drop. So that's more from a data release perspective, right? And also later on, I'll also be showing you guys how you can actually see this high impact news events from the economic calendar. Okay, so back on to our analysis here, you can see that in terms of just looking at the price action here, you can see that price actually broke the previous support. It closed below, retested as resistance, and this level lines up with your descending trend line as well. Another thing to watch is that we can again, right, apart from using our graphical levels that we've identified, it's to see if there are any retracement and extension levels that line up there. So in this example specifically, right, the retracement that I would be using, it's again, right, looking at the moves, you can see there's a strong move down, price held, and then another move down here. Even though in this case, right, you don't really see any solid close, it's just price with a lot of wicks, right? So it's very volatile in this region. You can see here essentially, right, this is the last move. So I'll be using this as a high and this as a low. So now that we've identified our last move, right, before the pullback or a potential pullback rather, right, you can see that this is the last move. And then right now we're seeing price consolidate here. So I can use this as a high, use this as a low, right? So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to open up the Fibonacci retracement tool. And again, right, high and low. So I'll use the lowest point, which is this point. And then let me just remove all this markings first so that it's neater on the charts. And essentially you can see here when we open up the key retracement levels, again, these are the default ones on TradingView. You can see very nicely, right, when I open up the key retracement levels here, what lines up with this area that we've identified on the H1 is actually our 38.2 Fibonacci retracement. So you can see here, right, price came in and right on this, I'll probably change the color for that so that's easier to see. Right, let's say in pink, you can see here, right, this over here, the 38.2% line up with this resistance area, right? There was the previous support which failed and became a resistance area. And in line with that, there's this descending trend line as well, right? Or if you want to be even more specific, I believe there's also a channel here. So that's what we have on gold. Let's see. Right, so you can see there's this descending channel. Here as well, right? So let me just put this in different color so that's probably in darker gray. You can see here, right? So price came in and respected at the tops and bottoms of the channel here. And then again, right, the high and the low. And right now this channel lines up, this resistance zone that we found also lines up with the resistance of the channel. So this is potentially what we could see, right? So if you want to be more conservative, right, probably to the next low here. And I think if we do see further downside, if we see a clear break below a support, right now we're not really seeing a clear support zone being established, right? If we do see a clear break below the support, and if this a break out below this channel, then the next zone that I'm looking at would be this region. And this region it's also what we found on the weekly time frame. So yep, so overall gold, it's still bearish, but we have to be slightly more careful. You can see here, right? Prices are still holding below your descending channel. There's also support and resistance level along with Fibonacci retracement level that lines up at this area. So yeah, so just to be slightly more cautious because tonight is the US CPI data. So that's on gold. And then another one, it's on pound yen. Right, so pound yen on the higher time frame over here, right? So this was also the call that was made on Friday. You can see on this area, right? So pound yen on the higher time frame, I believe on your weekly time frame, you can see here prices are testing resistance. It came here, right? So it was the previous resistance turn support area, support turn resistance area. Price respected as support, it tested, it failed, and then right now is coming in to test this region as a resistance, but we have to be slightly more careful on the daily because prices are sitting on a potential support zone with your ascending trend line. So on Friday, when we made the call on pound yen, we were somewhere here in time, right? So this was the purple line that we saw on Friday, and you can see essentially over here, right? We caution the limited downside we have on pound yen. In this example, you can see that price again, right? This area. So price actually came in, retested this resistance, and this is also lining up with the 78.6 retracement. So again, right? 78.6 retracement, 61.8 retracements in line with descending trend line can be very useful. So in this example, you can see that this resistance zone that we highlighted, right? Following the analysis, price actually came up, retested this area. It was also a support and resistance zone, right? You can see here, if I zoom down to the 1 hour, you can see it clearer here as well. So you can see, right, again, this area that we've highlighted in blue, price came in, tested as both a resistance, and then after that, it pushed higher as a support before it fails. So this region itself, right, when price comes back into this region, you can see here, right, price revisited this region, this blue region here, right? And also, this is also in line with the 78.6 retracement. It then pushed lower, right? It pushed lower and then it hit this low here, this support area, this low here before it continues upwards. So that's on pound yen, currently still holding below the descending trend line. But right now, I don't really see any nice setups that we have over here, right? We could see limited downside over here, this region, right? But right now, I would say that if we do want to play a short on pound yen here, what I want to wait for on the higher time frame, on the smaller time frames, either on your 30 minutes or 15 minutes, is a clear break below support zone first. Until that happens, I think there isn't a extremely nice setup for me right now on pound yen. So yep, so that's on pound yen, right? So that was the call that was done on Friday. Another interesting setup I want to show you guys is on dollar CAD, right? But this one I'll be slightly more cautious because on dollar CAD we have US CPI data coming out. There's also the Bank of Canada's interest rate decision as well. So just something to be more careful of. So dollar CAD again, it's sitting on a very interesting level on the higher time frame. If you look at this area, you can see that this area, right, this resistance area here, you can see price again, if I were to highlight this region, right? So price came in, retested this level as a support before it fails, and then right now it is sitting on this level as a resistance. You can see here, this is on the monthly time frame. You probably see the similar setup, right? On the weekly, we are seeing a more obvious support zone on the weekly time frame. You can see on the weekly time frame, right, this whole region, the price tested as support and then failed and held as a resistance over here. This is on the weekly time frame. You can see that this specific level or zone over here actually divides the chart very nicely. So price tested as both support and resistance. And on the daily time frame, you can see that price failed to take out the high multiple times. Let me just remove this. You can see that we marked out this high previously, and you see over here, right, price failed to take out the high. We saw 3 spikes, 3 rejection, but price did not close above this high, right? So that's on the daily time frame. And then after that, on the 4 hours time frame, you can see over here. So right now we're seeing more volatile move. So previously on dollar CAD, this is what we were watching out for. You can see this region, right? So we saw that price were holding below the descending trend line, and coupled with that, right, it's also sitting on a weekly resistance. So what we're waiting for over here is a clear break and close below this this support, right? So previously when we saw this analysis, you can see that price held over here, and we wanted to wait for a break below the support level, close below, and this would be the next target. So this played out nicely here. And then right now you can see here this region, right now we're just seeing a lot of movement. right, as we await the go into the New York session. Okay, so yeah, so right now for me, my bias on dollar CAD is still bearish, but I also want to be careful because we do have the US CPI data tonight and your BOC interest rate decision. So yeah, let's wait for how this would play out, right? So in general, you can see over here, right, what we have. So previously we did an analysis, a retracement on this move, but you can see that this is no longer valid, right? Because the move has taken place. So what we have over here right now is, of course, the last move, right, before the pullback. This is the push down before price pulls back. And you can see that the last move, this is your high and this is your low. So with this, right, once we take a retracement of this move from high to low, right, again, open up the key level, so 6178.6, right? And you can see very neatly here, right, in this case, this 78.6, let me just put it in a different color, probably in purple. You can see that price came up, right? It actually rejected the, right off the 78.6 retracement. So this region here. Right, you can see in line with this, right? Price came in, it tapped into the 78.6 retracement, and also at the same time, right? It's also, we are seeing a descending trend line as well that's being formed here. So yeah, so that's my view on dollar CAD is still bearish, but right now, you know, we probably want to wait for the data to be released first, right? Right now, you can see over here, right, in terms of a graphical level, a key graphical level. Let me remove all of this, right? Since this play is done, right? This call is done, right? So price pushed down, it tested our support zone that we've highlighted and then pushed higher. And right now, you can see that in terms of the support zone, the most recent support zone that we have is this area. So again, if you zoom down to the 1 hour time frame, you can see here, right? So price came in, there was a resistance, it respected this zone, and then it tested as a support, and price pushed right into this area before we see this strong rejection. So that's what we have on the higher time frames. Right, so what we want to wait for this bearish move to take place, it's again, right, to wait for price to break and close below this. Right now, it's holding below the descending trend line, but you can see over here, right, support levels are still being respected. So that's what I see on dollar CAD, right? And yeah, so if you guys have any questions, right, do put them under the questions tab. And if you have any charts you want me to analyze, right, do look through, do put them under the questions tab as well. And the next thing I want to show you guys would be on basically the economic calendar, right? So previously I mentioned that there's US CPI data being released, there's Bank of Canada's interest rate decision. So where you can find them is actually on Vantage website, right? So on Vantage website, just go under education and tools, economic calendar here, and you can see that this, I did not click on the economic calendar. Right, okay, so this is what we have, right? You can see over here, right? So these are the high impact news. So over here, you can see, right, Bank of Canada interest rate decision, and also US CPI data, right? So these are all the upcoming key events, and they are also categorized according to the impact, right? So the ones with the darker colors, like your dark red, this would be the ones with the higher impact, and then the ones with the lighter colors are the ones with lower impact. So this is where you can keep track of all the key events, right? And it's especially useful in when you're trading, right? And then another thing that you can do as well, right? So if you guys are wondering where you can sign up for the educational webinars, you can just go under education and tools under educational webinars. So this is on Vantage website, and over here you can see that this is basically the sessions that we have, right? So you can just sign up for these sessions, right? So we have I believe analysis or webinars almost on a daily basis, right? So you can check out the schedule here and just sign up from there. So yeah, so I think that's all that we have for today, right? There are no other questions. So thanks everyone, and we will catch you guys again next week. Thank you and goodbye.